great episode. At the Performance Zone, we bring you industry professionals to educate you, inspire you, inform you, enlighten you, and it is my job to unpack these amazing people and get into the nuggets of who they are and what they're about so we can share that information with you so that you can improve your life and take your walk and yourself to the next level. Now, this episode of the Performance Zone is being brought to you by Claybank Studio, your online, on-camera training center for work in film and television. And we'd love for you to come down and check out what we're doing down here. We're also being brought to you by LA's 1 Minute Monologue Contest, which is an annual competition that takes place each year around this time where we have actors put up a monologue in about 60 to 90 seconds, and they get to perform these monologues in front of a panel of industry professionals, writers, directors, producers, filmmakers. It's an amazing thing, and you can find out more about this monologue contest, which is taking place in January 2020 this year, by going to the number 1minutemonologue.com. So that's 1minutemonologue.com with the actual digit. So our guest today is an industry veteran. I'm very excited to meet her because we haven't actually met yet. And for the first time, I'm going to have to use some notes because her resume is extensive and there's so many things about her I have yet to learn. And so we're actually going to learn more about Liz Imperio together. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome educator, motivational speaker, director, and choreographer, Liz Imperio. Liz, welcome to the Performance Zone.
Thank you so much, Clay. I'm excited to be a part of this.
Well, great. I'm excited that you're here. This is terrific. I can take these off now, and we allow our little mascot Pete to watch over things. And
fantastic.
Kind of part of the show right there. So, Liz, I'm just going to jump out on a few things, and we'll get going with this. I mean, some of the people that you've worked with have been absolutely fantastic. I mean, we're talking Jennifer Lopez and Gloria Estefan, Michael Jackson. You've worked in film, music videos, television. I mean, my goodness, you certainly have been busy.
Yes. I can say that I'm one of the blessed individuals that this has been my whole career path since I was a little girl. I've never really worked any other type of job. I never bartended. I never sold clothes. I've been one of the fortunate ones that this has been my everyday.
What? Was it dance that you broke
yes,
into as
absolutely.
a little girl?
My mom was actually a dancer in the National Ballet of Cuba. And so when they came over from Cuba here and my mom unexpectedly had me, dance was the thing that she really wanted me to not just to be introduced, but to understand and kind of be immersed in the experience, not knowing that this was actually going to be my career path for the rest of my life, or a big part of it at least.
And how old were you when you got started?
I want to say I was roughly about 3 years old
Right.
when my mom first put me into dance class.
Ballet?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was somewhere around 8 years old that I discovered that this was actually something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And it was all about ballet.
And you're a Long Beach native, is that correct?
Yes, born and raised in Long Beach.
Okay.
So Southern California girl my entire life.
Right. And then you were doing dancing there, and eventually I guess you made your way up to Hollywood and started dancing in some of these studios. How did that work?
So oddly enough, when I was young, my mom introduced me from ballet into flamenco. And it was flamenco that actually took me out into Hollywood to just take lessons from really spectacular teachers. And then out of nowhere, my mom got a call from a friend saying, hey, this choreographer is looking for Latin specialty acts. And I thought of your daughter. She dances flamenco. That might be something that might interest them. My mom said, great, no problem. And so my mother, being my mother, loaded up her Cadillac with all the flamenco costumes you could possibly think of. And we had, she brought her photo album because we didn't have phones,
Right.
and a box of cassette tapes. And I walk into the room to audition for a gentleman by the name of Kenny Ortega. And Kenny Ortega has been my mentor since I was 14 years old. He saw me dance, fell in love with me, and the first thing he said is like, I want to hire you as my assistant. I didn't even know what that meant.
Right. 14.
At 14.
Mm.
And so he brought me on to do a Vegas show bringing in my flamenco talents. Next thing I know, after the job is done, I come home. He's like, "Hey, we're working on a movie, Salsa. You want to come join us?" Absolutely. So he brought me in to assist on the movie Salsa, and that was my very first time on a movie set. I was roughly about, God, 17 years old at the time. And then it just kept spiraling from there. And before I knew it, he handed me my very first job as a choreographer, as a solo choreographer. He was getting ready to actually step into his directorial debut with the movie Newsies. And Gloria Estefan had just come from her back accident. We had just finished doing her first music video since her back accidents, which is why we already had a connection. And Gloria reached out to Kenny and said, "Hey, would Liz be interested in choreographing my world tour?" And I was 19 years old at the time when I choreographed my very first world tour, which I still look back and I still don't know if that really happened, but somehow it
Wow.
did.
That's pretty fascinating. So if I hear you correctly, you were choreographing the show for Gloria at 19,
Yes.
with Gloria, and
Yes.
choreographing Gloria
Choreographing Gloria,
at
absolutely
19.
at
How
19.
old was she at the time?
Oh God. Probably in her mid
Oh,
30s.
really?
Yes,
Okay.
mid 30s. We worked together for about 13 years. I did 3 world tours for her. And that was the very first one. It was 1990 for her Into the Light World Tour. This was literally right after her bus accident, where nobody thought she was going to be able to walk again.
Mm.
And so being a part of not just the experience of choreographing a world tour, but watching someone overcome such insane uh, challenges in her life. She was not just a great person, not just a great artist, but just an inspiration to what's worth fighting for.
Going back to Kenny, what do you think you could say you walked away with that most affected your life by being underneath his tutelage?
Oh, wow, that's a very long list. I would say the first thing is uh,
Business, life principles,
I'm going to
skills?
say life principles first and foremost.
Mhm.
Kenny, whenever you meet anyone that's ever worked with Kenny, the first thing you'll always hear is like, "Wow, what a great man." Because the way he handles himself on set, the way he introduces himself to every single person, whether it's the craft service person or the DP or the new
Yeah,
talent or the extras
right.
or the background, he is just that individual that wants to make you feel comfortable the minute you walk into the room. Because I think as a director, he understands that when when you make your talent incredibly comfortable in their environment, you're going to get the best work. And it removes all inhibitions. It's a lot easier to
Yeah,
break down
you're
those
smart.
walls. Yeah. And then I would say next is his ability to communicate. He is really specific about what he wants from camera movement to how he wants the choreography to unfold and just his willingness to always experiment. I used to call him the change king of LA because he would change his mind every 2 minutes. And at times you think aren't you done yet? Are we, or isn't, can't we just settle? And that was a thing. For him, there was never a concept of settling. For him, it was always, how can I make this one step better? And I think that those just on those principles alone have been such a foundation for me as a choreographer and as a director, and just moving forward into my life. How vast those basics have just really laid out an amazing career path for me.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that is inspired you to take a look at things and go, okay, how do we improve upon this? Where
Yes,
can we go next with making this better than it already is?
absolutely.
And you obviously were able to do that.
Yes. It's in the I'm going to speak from the world of choreography. It's so easy just to kind of get into a room, turn on some music, get inspired by movement, and then kind of lock yourself into an idea. And once you get onto set, sometimes I've met choreographers that sometimes are just kind of stuck to the one idea. And working with someone like Kenny, there was just always another opportunity just to stretch something in a new direction that may inspire either camera or directors or artists. And if that opportunity creates a strong synergy on set, then you're walking into gold. And that's I think that's that's beneficial for anybody in any situation. And so I was always taught to fight until the very last moment, seconds before someone steps on camera, whether it's live or if it's, in a pre-shoot. And sometimes it's gotten me in trouble because directors sometimes walk in already with a set idea, and
Hmm.
here you are kind of going, hey, but what do you think about this? And I find that the ones that were always open to trying new things, we ended up walking away with the best products.
Let's unpack that for a minute because you've choreographed quite a bit and for some very big names. I mean, you choreographed with Michael Jackson.
Oddly enough, yes. So that came from Kenny. Kenny has had a very long relationship with Michael, and he brought me in to work with Michael and a collection of 80 named performers for the show United We Stand,
All right. Okay.
which
And
was following the 2000. Yeah.
were you one of several choreographers, or,
No, for when it came to that performance with Michael, it was just Kenny and myself.
and you worked with Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Well, we need to look at that before I go back to what I was going to say. Well, let's hold on to that. Let's hold on to that because we'll keep that just for a second. That's good stuff. Um, Working with a director. Let's talk about that. The collaborative nature and everything that's involved with the strong minds that are in charge of the same production that have to collaborate and work together to be able to get the best result.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that nature because actors have to deal with that to some degree as well. When they get to a point where they're actually able to be actively involved in the creative process, and let's face it, a lot of actors aren't. They show up,
Oh,
they're happy to get the job. The director's the boss and just do whatever they say. But that's not everybody in every
correct.
project. So what was that like for you, working with these different big name directors?
You know, you have someone. I worked with a gentleman by the name of Ramon Melendez, who was actually the writer for Stand By Me, and I was brought on to do a Disney Channel product, and we had. For the first time on camera, America Ferrera. We had some young, brand new, spanking talent nobody had ever seen, and Ramon was, a dramatic writer coming in, writing this show and now directing, and he'd never had no experience in dance whatsoever, and it was really interesting to see where his mindset was when he first would walk in with his script. He already had an idea specifically about what he wanted, and then of course my job is to now also educate him a little bit more about what he can do with our dancing, with our talent, to be able to expand, whether it's the concept of the camera movement, and not get stuck into the basics of camera work, which happens a lot in dance. So in other words, we will take like a basic master shot, we'll take up some B-roll, some B shots, and it's nice from pickups, but there's a much more interesting way to become immersive in dance, that can really create a much more uh, resonating experience for the audience. And uh, and it was interesting because he was so adamant about just wanting his own vision. And the more I cultivated my relationship with him, the more he was open to really just seeing that, oh, wow, we could actually be doing more with this. And we ended up walking away with a great product. It was a great Disney Channel show. Oddly enough, I would probably say that Gary Marsh will still say that was the start of what allowed Disney to have a new breath of life. And this was before High School Musical came in. This is before Cheetah Girls came in. Before Descendants came in. This was the initial film, dance Disney Channel film, that created such a spark. It created such a people just did not. Nobody at Disney expected this to catch fire the way that it did.
Mm.
But again, when you give yourself a little bit of faith that what you have to offer is something that's going to bring value, not just to a director, but to the product, then you realize that you have a bigger opportunity here to be collaborative and really explore the creative mind in a way that now allows other people to kind of feed into. And I mean, you can't not walk away when you have 5, 6 people, your DP, your choreographer, your directors, your set designers, your lighting, and everybody's literally working on this one thing to make this one product so fantastic. you can't help but walk away feeling really proud. And when you see the results afterwards by audience response and how much it inspired kids across the country, and Si Se Puede became like the tagline for so many young girls that wanted to now be a little bit more involved in dance. It just,
What was that tagline?
Si Se Puede, which is yes, we can.
Say it again. I like that.
Si Se Puede.
Come on. All right, let's go the other side of that. How about handling, I could say difficult directors, but I could also word it that where the chemistry just doesn't work, and
Yes.
it's a conflicting relationship.
Absolutely. So I would say my relationship on a film with a great director, oddly enough, but again, very like he was so locked into his ideas about what he wanted. And what was interesting is that he came to me and he was like, "Look, we really want this to be a wedding dance, and we want the kids to have like this ring around the rosy type dance without it being ring around the rosy." And I was like, great, not a problem. So, we listen to the music, we explore ideas. I have a few of my assistants, I have professional dancers. We're exploring. And when he came back, we gave him basically everything he asked for. And he was like, but no, that's not what I wanted. I want the ring. I want the circle. The circle is our friend. I was like, okay, but okay, all right. So there were so many back and forth moments, and all you can do at that point is know that if you have to surrender, and this is the biggest lesson I had to learn growing up in this industry, is knowing how to surrender my ego. When I have to deal with a very difficult director, the first thing I will probably say is take a breath and let go. Because more than likely, as much as you want to collaborate and be of service to someone, there are times people that are just very, very locked into what they want. It doesn't always serve maybe the overall product as a whole, but that's what they're requiring of you. Okay, that's fine.
They're the director.
They're the director. And sadly, then the scene got cut because it didn't serve the scene. And it's it kind of breaks your heart because you really wanted something to really just shine through just to make the scene work, or to be something that's going to lend how to bring the story further forward to the next scene. And there are times where it works and there are times where it doesn't.
So what I'm hearing is that you pretty much just have to do an ego check and just back down.
Yes. There are times I know there are moments where it's worth fighting for, and then there are moments when you realize no matter how hard you fight, you're not going to win this.
Isn't that the truth? Hmm.
It's every day sometimes.
Now, now we have a large actor audience, and of course entertainers, singers and dancers and actor slash kind of deal. When it comes to working with the talent, in this case dancers and dancer performers, how is it that you find there are talent that works well on set for you, that you go, I just want to work with this person all the time, and somebody that you go, I don't ever want to see this person again? I think it's important because everybody finds themselves in a situation where they're either being part of the problem or part of the solution.
Absolutely. It never goes without saying, talent in Los Angeles or any mecca of entertainment, that's the one thing you're going to find loads of. So much talent in every direction. Being able to find talent that is willing to listen, willing to be playful, willing to risk, even if it's, I'm going to feel like a dork for a minute, but I got to trust the process. When you have people that have that willingness to participate, again, you that in itself, I think, is one of the hardest things to find. I think everybody's so concerned about what everybody else is thinking all the time that sometimes you surrender the biggest part of who you are as a talent, and that's the willingness to explore, discover, experiment. That's I think the beauty of being a creative individual. And then on top of it, somebody that's just easygoing, not when you deal with egos, and I've dealt with egos, my God, you you deal with egos every day in this industry, and there are times where I feel like the ego merits a place, and then there are times where it halts production. It makes it really challenging. It adds friction.
Just gets in the way.
It gets in the way, absolutely. And there's a point where no matter how talented somebody is, there's a point where everybody just kind of like shakes it off and like, we're done. There's no point in me working with you. I have better chances of getting something out of a wall than out of your ego. So if there's that point where I have to make a choice, then I learn to let go. So even in the world of dance, I have a list. I have a very long list. And every year I come back and I work with my assistants. And after every project we work on, we talk about every person that we've worked with. Who was great? Who was like the rock star of this production?
Okay, hold it there. I get that. This is great, and this is where a lot of agents, managers, representatives, casting directors, producers, everybody has their short list.
Yes.
So for you, what does it take to be that rock star?
Oh, uh, I think first and foremost, the talent, obviously. The talent needs to have diversity. Um, it's great to be specialized, but specialized leaves you a little limited as a choreographer, as a director. So having someone that has a little bit more diversity to their emotional platform in the world of dance, just their dance styles, not just being a great hip hopper. I need somebody that can dance great jazz and ballroom and flamenco and has, again, a little bit more just of a worldly understanding of dance. I think the next thing beyond that is just that emotional vulnerability that when you see it on stage makes you cry, makes you laugh, makes you get excited, makes you celebrate, gets you pissed off. Same thing on camera. Being able to find that person that has not just the physical attributes, but the emotional attributes, something that's going to be relatable and connected to an audience, because that's where it's going to matter most, is like that relatability. And then above beyond that, somebody that's just a good person who's responsible, stays on time, doesn't work on excuses, but is that you know what, give me 5 minutes and I'm going to get it for you. And those willing participants, those to me are like the rock stars.
Okay, all right. I want to drill in here because you also motivate. We talked earlier. You motivate, you empower a lot of dancers, not just teach them choreography and dance, but also life principle skills as a life coach. Um, my thing as an instructor is always, how do I get this information across and then into a person so that they actually get this? And something that's difficult is teaching a blind person to see.
Yeah.
So if you've got somebody that doesn't understand these things and they don't even know that they're doing them, or maybe they're doing them but they can't control the fact that they're doing them, and on the other side of it, we've got people who are everything you just said, that whole hit list. They're
Yeah.
there, they show up early, they put in the extra effort, they're fun to be around and all that. To somebody that's listening right now, to get them to understand, how do you become that more magnetic person, that more I want to work with you person? What would you say that is? What do they need to do?
You know what? That is a great question. Because self-awareness is one of the hardest things to tap into, or even again be aware what it even means. You know, and especially in this industry, because we're hustlers by nature. We hustle to get that next job. But the thing is that when you hustle for so long, you start to put blinders on either side of your eyes, and it gets to be very narrow-minded. And my job, whenever I work with dancers, is to try to get as much of those blinders to crack open just enough that they can see that there's a little bit more. My mom was very adamant about teaching me growing up that she's that person that doesn't believe in the word no. She only knows in the word yes. She doesn't believe in festering into a problem. She looks into figuring out the
Oh, that's
solution.
fantastic.
And being able to discover choice in any moment of any person's life is the minutia of mental awareness. And but getting somebody to be aware means you hope that somebody's going to be honest with you. You hope that you're surrounding yourself with honest people. My mom, I could speak hours about my mom, but my mom was that person that always sought out the teacher. That she always had three principles that every teacher for me needed to have: honesty, structure, and discipline. Because if the person couldn't be honest to begin with, then how am I ever supposed to actually grow? Now, whether I like what they're telling me through their honesty or not is something that I have to face. And and that's the thing. Most people still love living their life blindly. And then it takes life punching you in the face a good amount of times before you are willing to even look. And when you hopefully look, you hope that you start to reach out to people that maybe you dismiss because they were too honest. Maybe you allow them to be a little bit more invested in your life because it may hurt for a minute, but if you realize that that honesty is coming with love, it's coming with earnest, it's coming with integrity, it's coming with the best of what we all have to offer as human beings, then maybe their honesty is going to lead you to something better because the path that you currently are taking is only creating the same result. And so, to me, if you're going to create the same result over and over again, it's because you're still making the same choice. So until you can change the choice, that means you have to change how you're thinking, whether it's about you, your responses, how you react, and that takes a good solid minute. I work with dancers who can be incredibly stubborn, and I am that person that even though we're working in a professional environment, I still want to introduce principles to help them understand how to improve, how to see themselves a little bit better, how to grow themselves, how not to get stuck in pity or the martyr or the victim role, and get them to be proactive. And
What is that right there? Let's look at that PowerPoint of, okay, so they are in these I just call them downward arrows. Our energies are either tolerating or celebrating. We're either going down or we're going up. I mean, we're doing one or the other.
absolutely.
And when you have someone who's caught up in that perpetual state of any of these things that just are just downward arrows, getting those arrows to turn up, I hear what you're saying. These are awesome principles. I want to take one thing out of it, and we'll put a little bit of more pressure
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
you. You know, you're an empowerment coach. You're a life coach, right? So I'm gonna challenge these things. Um, for me, I find sometimes with these people, what it does take is what you said. They need to get a couple of belts in the face from life before they get it, and that's the only thing. There's the only thing that's going to stop. And it's like some things just, they say God's going to whisper in your ear, then He's going to give you a nudge, then He's going to push you, and eventually the wrecking ball's coming out.
Yeah.
But it's at some point you're going to get the head. So outside of that wrecking ball coming in and just punching them in the face, so to speak, these words you're saying, what would you say to somebody that really needs to make that adjustment from self-destruction into being a more positive, collaborative individual that didn't grow up with a mother like yours?
Knowing how to fight for yourself is one of the hardest things to do. The easiest thing to do in life is to give up. My mom was a survivor from a communist country. Her and my grandmother and my aunt and my grandfather had to work in a concentration camp for 9 years before they were allowed to come here. So I was raised by survivors.
Mm.
And the thing that I found in my life growing up beyond that was that I realized as much as my mom has survived, she knows how to there's a difference between surviving your life and fighting for your life. And that to me is my one step evolving past my mom, which to me is an amazing thing to even see, embrace, and make a daily practice.
You're finishing her trajectory.
Correct.
Or
And
advancing it. I don't know if
yes,
you have children.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, the children you
yes, the
teach,
children that I
yes.
teach,
Passing
exactly.
that trajectory on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I want people to eventually, obviously, you want people to always be better than you at some point, especially your children. You want them to evolve. You work hard to get them to a certain place, and you hope that your children basically pick up from where you left off and keep going, and not that you just create the same cycle of living just as far as they did. And for me, when it comes to that moment where life is punching you in the face, you have to choice. You have a choice to make. And that choice is to either fight or give up. And I've seen people give up, and it is heartbreaking. We see people give up every day. I mean, I hate to say that we live right now, even in a city where I used to drive so much down Gower, and there was no such thing as a homeless person walking down Gower. Now it's tents. Now it's tent cities.
Yeah.
And people are surrendering and believing that this is as good as life is going to get. And I have to call BS on that, because there's a point where you either allow life to just design whatever it is that you, because you've let go, you've stopped believing. And it's the hardest thing is to find that self-belief, that self-faith, that the idea of fighting because your life is so worth it. And that's why, to me, the concept of developing self-value, or getting kids to understand what value even means. As adults, you eventually learn even the idea of value. I'll be honest, when I was younger, I worked a lot, but until I learned my value, I only worked as much as I knew that my worth was. Once I understood what my worth was, my work has now become limitless.
How did you learn that?
Oh, getting hit in the face,
Right.
getting punched in the face. When 2008 hit, it
Right.
it it was the face hit around the world. There wasn't anyone that wasn't discriminated. Nobody was immune from the hit that the economy took. And I was at a point where I our industry went from LPs and selling records to now everything going online onto iTunes. Instead of selling, albums, it went to singles. Suddenly, every production that was out there went from being these multi, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars being spent on these award shows and tours because the money was coming in, to now everybody went unplugged. I had 9 months of work laid out from the beginning of the end of 2008 through almost mid to end of summer of 2009, and within 2 weeks it was all gone. In that same vein, my business partner took a hit. He had a heart attack. We lost our home. It was, two of my friends passed away. My family was going under the wraps. It was one thing after the other, and you get to a point where, when you have so many things coming at you, and you're now looking for pennies because now we're not working. I remember literally like pulling money out of my couch to see if I could just buy a cheeseburger at McDonald's, because that would be the cheapest thing that I could find. And here I am, 38. I've already worked on tours. You know, Hitting rock bottom can happen to anyone at any given time in life. But there's a point where, when you hit rock bottom so hard, you have to start making a choice of whether you want to continue this path, or you realize, no, there's got to be something better.
So how'd you turn it around?
Oddly enough, my business partner somehow got his hands on a set of Tony Robbins CDs.
Right.
And the first thing, I just remember listening to Tony and going, sometimes all it is just taking one day at a time. Sometimes let's just do the simplest thing. Make one phone call. Make one phone call to somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time. And it was humbling. And it was, when you're on the top of your game, the last thing you're used to doing is asking for help, because you're on the top of your game. When you're no longer on the top of your game, you have no choice but to ask for help. But letting go of everything that you believe is who you are, but why am I asking for help? I was just this person. I was just making all this money. I was traveling around the world, and now I have to ask for help. And there's a point in your mind where everything starts to kind of feel helpless. And again, the victim mode, the martyr mode, the helpless mode, everything just starts to trigger. And there's a point where, again, coming from my mom, this is where the survivalist kind of kicks in, and you have to like slap yourself around a little bit and go, no, you're better than this. You can ask for help because there's nothing wrong with it. And the minute that clicked in my mind, I started speaking to people that I haven't spoken to for years. The minute that clicked for me, the more I started talking to people that I would never think of talking to before. And suddenly, new paths, more work started showing up in
Just
a
by
way.
talking to
Just
people.
by talking, just by surrendering.
Mm.
There are 3 words. It was so funny. I saw, I wish I could remember the name of the movie. But the tagline of the movie, it had the surrender is, and it had the letter V. Um, and in my head, all I thought was, surrender is victory. When you learn to surrender that one thing in your life, victory really starts to shine through. If you surrender your stubbornness, man, you'll be able to see more. You'll be able to hear more. When you are surrendering your ego, man, it's amazing how people want to work with you more. When you learn to surrender things that you feel were so important to you and you realize they're not that important, these other things are. You know, in that moment where I was hitting rock bottom, I used to travel to a lot of dance studios and a lot of dance conventions, and I would work with tens of thousands of kids every year. And I remember I was like, okay, let me go and just make out some emails. And I wrote out to 50 people. Not one person responded. And I was like, man, this is hard. This is not easy. This is not going to come as easy as I thought. And I thought, okay, well, let me take a different approach. And I just reached out to a couple of other conventions, and suddenly somebody I did not expect to reach out to me reached out to me and said, "We would love for you to come and guest teach." Fantastic, great. So at least I'll get some work there. All right. Well, maybe I'm not as bad. I've been out of touch with the industry. Maybe I need to put myself back in touch. And I threw my videos up on screen because I'm also an editor, and I started editing my demo reel, because there's a point where in all of this mess that you're going through when everything is going wrong, you start to think that you're not worth it, you're not relatable. Who's ever going to hire you? You've been out of sight, out of mind. Like what do you have worth offering anymore? And as I pop up all these footage and I see Gloria and I see Michael and I see Jennifer Lopez and I see American Music Awards and I see Grammys and I see this and I see that and I see Disney Channel and I see my commercial work, and I'm just like, why am I thinking that I'm not relevant? Why am I thinking that I don't have anything to offer?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
holy crap. Like, sometimes you just need to see yourself in the mirror and remind yourself of everything you've ever made happen. But when you're in the habit of doing what you do every day, and this is the biggest trap, I'm going to say this to everyone out there. When you are used to doing what you're doing every single day, you stop realizing that what you do is special, because to you it's just ordinary. And you have to remind yourself that what you do with love, you do with passion, but you come up with it with work and commitment and dedication, which means that you keep adding value. And that's the thing that I think most people forget, is that what you do matters. Sometimes you don't know how far, but
Yeah.
it does matter.
No, that's an excellent point. When I was retiring from acting after my 18-year run, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to just instruct full time. I'm got to build a business. I hired a couple of business coaches because I understand the power of coaching. And one business coach, very successful woman, international, name's Fabienne. Some people might know her, and she's just an amazing business coach. And I hired her. I bought into her system and everything. And this woman was just crazy, crazy successful. She says, one of the things that I do is whenever I get a testimonial from any of my clients, I put them in a special folder. And I hold that folder and I let those little testimonials just stay in that folder. And when I'm having one of those days or one of those moments when I don't think what I'm doing is worth it, I'm a phony, and we all have that whole kind of
Yes.
counterfeit syndrome that goes on. She says I go over and I start reading through those testimonials, and it throws me right back on my game. And that's what I'm hearing happen to you when you
Absolutely.
look at the videos.
Yes. We, again, being the hustlers that we are, and this is not, I mean, everybody hustles, not just our industry, but everybody hustles. Everybody hustles to
Life's
the,
a hustle.
it is. But there's a point where, you have to look up. You just have to be able to look up. You have to be able to see yourself in the mirror. You have to actually love what you see. You have to be able to accept what you have. And then if it's not enough, then make the change. So again, it's like, when it comes back to that concept of awareness, I think the simplest thing is you just got to be able to look. You have to be willing to look. And sometimes you have to look in the places you don't want to. You know, no matter what a person says to an alcoholic, you can't tell somebody to stop drinking. They have to be the ones willing to stop drinking. You can't tell somebody who loves to play games, just stop playing games. Like, what are you doing? No, the person has to, there's a point where you have to either choose to want to be a part of your life or not. But again, sometimes you just need a little bit of that little tough love that life gives you, losing a job, getting divorced, losing where you live.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mom said there is no guarantee in life. which is true. There is no guarantee of life. You can't, there's no way to guarantee that I'm going to stay healthy for the rest of my life. There's no way to guarantee that if I say I do, that I get to stay married. It doesn't mean that I become a CEO of a company means I get to keep the company. Like someone like Steve Jobs, who just got kicked out of his own company. Like, what? There's no, you can own a home, and here we live in California. How many homes got burned down? How many homes get destroyed in a tornado? There are no guarantees. My mom said there's only one, is that there's a day that you live and there's a day that you die. That's the only guarantee. So in between, all we have left is to work as hard as we can to live the best life that we can.
You know, they call it the dash. Life is all about the dash in between the start and the end date.
Yes.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing also, just in what you're saying, and coming back to the tough times, they say there's no atheists in foxholes. We're all going to take hits, and even in the program, you have to adhere to a power more powerful than yourself, and that's faith, and that's the God dynamic. Now, there's a lot of people put different names on God, but we understand God is source and power supply, and then just based on your own theological belief system on who God is in your life.
Yeah.
If you put your confidence and your faith in the things that are around here, you're not going to be as strong as in a believing entity, Father, Spirit. How people do define that, because I do a lot of counseling as well. When I talk to people, they say, "Well, I don't really have a faith. I don't believe in God." And I say, "Well, look at it this way. If you don't, then you can make something up. Wouldn't it make more sense to believe? Because what is belief? Belief is adhering to something that you can't actually tangibly, you can't prove. In that there is a Father or a person or a source or a power that does exist and is on our side and does care about us and is there for us and will never let us down. Doesn't that make more sense to actually have that in our life as opposed to just the brokenness and all the heavy stuff? I mean, got to counterbalance these things.
Absolutely. I feel that way about that's actually how I feel about dance. Dance to me was my higher power. And dance has been my soulmate, my best friend for as long as I can ever remember. And whenever I lost faith,
it puts you in touch with that center of source.
Absolutely. It's like being a great actor or being a great performer of any kind. There's a moment where my business partner and I talk a lot about this, and that when you are the closest connected to that moment, and you're so, if I'm dancing and I lose connection to the fact that I'm dancing in front of somebody specific, but I'm dancing and I'm caught up in the moment, I literally leave my body. I've had these experiences so many times where I feel like I've left my body and something else takes over. And once the performance is done, I come somehow back into my body and it's like, yo, what happened? I have no idea just what occurred. And my partner looks at me, he's like, don't you think that might be the closest moment you'll ever be to God? Because you let everything that you feel stand in your way disappear. And you let the true nature of who you are emerge. And that relationship I've had with dance for as long as I can earmark almost every aspect of my life up until now at 50 and think, my God, I don't know of when my industry, my talent hasn't been a big part of my life. That's on the flip side of not just having talent, but knowing how to keep tapping into it, knowing how to keep having, you look at people like Robert Downey Jr., great example. Somebody who's a great talent, truly great talent, and then lost himself enough to be thrown in jail. And to see his comeback as a person, as an actor, is really just so inspiring. And I feel like we all have a little bit of that. I feel like if we could all treat ourselves as the hero, that when everything throws us to the point where we don't think we're not going to be able to make it, we have to be able to tap into that thing, that faith, into that thing, that unknowingness, tap into that thing that's higher, bigger than us, and realize I might still have something in me to be able to do this. And suddenly, before you know it, you just get through the next day and to the next day. And next thing you know, you're back to here, but different. You see success, but success to me now is not the same as success was for me in my 20s and my 30s, not even in my 40s. And being able to now also stand with a little bit more humbleness and just grounded and anchored and realizing that my future has absolutely no limitation except for the one I decide to give it. That's when I realize I can now have a better relationship with myself, something I never had before. I just assumed things just landed in front of me because I got lucky or because somehow I was at the right place at the right time. And yes, luck is helpful, but it's not the end all.
Maybe a little divine intervention there, Liz. You know, you were saying when you were leaving your body and as close as you are to God, it's been said that ego, self, is the acronym for ease God out. So the more we're in the way,
I
the less
love
God's
that.
going to be in there, and the less we're in the way, more God comes in and shows up. And I think that's kind of a real nugget right there.
Absolutely. I feel like, the when even when an actor, I mean, you do see those actors that lose themselves in their characters or losing themselves in the scene. It's because they have literally just stepped away for that brief moment and they let something else in. You know, it's not the easiest thing to do. It really isn't to surrender that much.
Mm, yeah, but there it is.
But again, surrender is victory, right?
So here we're kind of coming down the back nine, so to speak, and I do want to address just your whatever your experience was with Michael, just what that was.
You know what? I have to say, you know, the moments that I got a chance to share with Michael, and they were very, very small. They weren't large. The one thing I noticed about him, so I will explain backstage. There was a point where Paris and Prince, his children, were there, and I remember Prince coming up to Michael, going, "Daddy, you need to eat." And Michael's like, "Honey, I'm not hungry right now." It's like, "No, no, no. You have to eat. You haven't eaten all day." I think he must have been about 9, 10. But what I saw were kids that were devoted to their father. I thought that was amazing. And to see the kindness that I witnessed, and it was maybe 10, 15 minutes that I was backstage there. But this was not a staged thing. This was not a scripted thing. This was just life for them. And to see how how genuine they were with each other and how loving they were with each other. I thought that was amazing. And then when I saw Michael on stage was a very different animal. That man had an ear for music. Like he could hear when a note was off from an instrument or from a voice. And it was interesting because whenever there was a moment where he had to take that commanding moment, his voice dropped. His voice actually got deeper. And I was like, wow, we're not always privy to seeing that all the time.
Mm.
But there was a moment when he was so anchored to the thing that made him so identifiable, which was his singing, his talent. Um, it was amazing to see how commanding he really was. Something that, I think after a while, this industry has a really interesting way of comic booking someone, almost cartoonizing,
Hmm.
because they want people to either see or believe. And I can't say whatever happened in other aspects of Michael's life. I can only speak on what I ever got a chance to witness. And what I witnessed in two very simple moments was a family that loved each other and a man who knew how to command a stage.
Yeah, yeah, he was something.
Outside of that, I
Who
have no
knows?
experience. So
Who
I'm one of
knows?
those people that's like, I don't know. I can't speak on it.
Who knows? You got just the talent's the talent, and
Yeah,
you got to just appreciate the gift that's operating because behind all gifts, there's a human, and we're all frail, flawed, and we all have our issues, right?
absolutely.
And so that's
I mean, yeah, I don't know if anybody. It's like, what is it? I'm not. I mean, I was raised Catholic, but the one thing that I always remembered was the one scripture where, Jesus said, anyone here who has never not sinned, cast the first stone.
hmm
I don't know of anybody in this world who could ever cast a stone.
no,
I
there's
think
nobody
we're all the
alive
same.
anywhere, right? No, of course, only he can cast the stone. So, all right, here's what I want to do, in just wrapping this up. This has been great.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's really
I've
been great.
enjoyed myself. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Coming from and I can hear the instructor in you. I can hear the care for people in you, and the life wisdom. Um, As a say a life coach, an empowerment coach, what is it that you would say to the world if you had an opportunity to post one picture and one Instagram saying, and the whole world would see it? What would be your IG post,
Oh, wow.
and what would it look like?
Okay. I think that in regards to the image, and hopefully nobody will be totally grossed out by this, but I would say I would take myself inside out and show everything about who I am from the inside out. And what I would post in regards to what it would say is something that was passed on to me by one of my great life coaches, Candace Silvers, and that was passion. When you break down the word, is being able to pass the I on. You get to share a piece of who you are with the world. That would be my Instagram.
Wow, I like that. Pass the eye on. Let's end on that. That's a beautiful note right there. Passion, pass the eye on. Liz, how can people find out more about you? Where is it that they can go to know more about you?
Well, they can definitely look me up. I'm on Instagram at Liz Imperio or Facebook at Liz Imperio. But I am launching an app for the dance community
Right.
called
Tell us about the
Success.
app.
The app is basically it's an opportunity to bridge the gap for the dance studio community, which are the kids that are growing up at dance studios, learning to dance, and they want to learn a little bit more about how, if I really love doing this, how can I cross over into the professional world?
Mm.
So we're bridging a gap through this app and being able to bring a little bit more of our knowledge of not just the industry, but also the things that it takes to last in this industry. You know, you can't make a resume off of one credit. Like you need to be able to build a career to have a life, and that's the part that this app really comes into play. And so it allows us not just to connect talented dancers to our agents or to choreographers that exist here in LA, but it's also an opportunity to mentor and to educate young dancers about self-worth, about everything that they are building up for themselves in their value systems, so then when they come here they understand a little bit more of how to handle their business, how to be able to say yes to the right jobs, how to say no to the wrong jobs, the ones that really merit your talent, that really merit the pay, the proper pay, versus just, you know, kind of giving it away at every second that you can,
This
which,
is all in your app.
yes,
How long have you worked on this?
this app has, well, I would say that it started off with a bunch of programs. It started off with a program called Breaking Barriers, which was a dancer's program. And then it developed into a program called Raising Successful Children, which was for the parents, which is a parallel program so that parents understand how to also guide their kids through this industry and understand a little bit more about the world of dance, because most
Is
parents
this through,
come with absolutely no knowledge of dance.
is this through videos, or is
Yes,
it? It's through
yes,
videos.
it's through video. So we have two certification courses on the app, one for the dancer and one for the parent. And then on top of it, we also have these fun aspects of it called like the dance challenges, where kids get to learn choreography, post it up on our app, and then our top 10 most voted then get to be distributed to our talent agencies here in LA. Who we have sponsorships with. And if the agencies want, they're going to give them feedback, or if they really like them, potentially represent them.
We could do a whole show on this app. Sounds fascinating.
Thank you.
Is this app available?
This app will be available next year.
Okay,
Yeah.
and it is going
It's
to
called
be.
it's called Success.dance. It'll be available on both Google as well as on iTunes.
Success
Dot
dance.
dance.
Do you have an idea what the icon's going to look like?
Yes, it's actually going to be. Let's see.
Do you have it?
I do have it.
You've got the artwork.
So
Let's
it's
see. Fire
so right
that.
now it's a little purple. I know it's going to be hard for you
Can
to
we punch-
see.
Can we punch in on that? Let's hold on. We'll get our producer Lauren to punch in on this before we wrap out.
As you see all the rest of my apps.
Go in on that little app there, Lauren, if you can.
Oh, I love it. So it's the purple one right there. So it's a purple background and it's got this silver guy in a jump position in the air.
Okay. All
But it
right.
is called Success.dance.
Maybe we'll post that in the show notes after.
Absolutely. I'll
And
send you
if
guys the
you
artwork.
send us the artwork, and we'll put that up on your platform on our page, which is at claybankstudio.com. and go to PZTV because that's what you've just been watching. Liz, this has been fantastic.
Thank
I
you
really
so
enjoyed
much.
getting to know you.
Yeah, same
And meeting you.
here.
This has been great because we have not met.
I know, this is always awesome.
Yeah, great way to meet. So thanks again. Really
Of course.
appreciate it. Okay, guys, that's another episode. We're going to wrap this up with the Performance Zone. Again, brought to you by Claybank Studio, on-camera acting for film and television for you. Come on down, check us out, claybankstudio.com, and the 1-minute monologue contest. Don't forget it's on right now and happening in January. Find out more about it at the number 1minutemonologue.com. Thanks again, guys. Until next time.